recording, and I'm not going to stand on ceremony. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. I can't believe we have arrived at the end of this long journey, and I am not kidding about that. For the folks who have just stumbled upon this video here at the very end, welcome, hello, and you missed it all. This is the end. We're we're talking about everything that we've done apparently for the last year and 3 months, as it
That's
turns out,
amazing.
for Thunder on the Mississippi from the Great Campaigns series. It's the most recent release, and what we're going to do today, this is our little experiment. We're going to talk about, this is not a review, nor is it an all encapsulating overview. This is just two guys who've played through all of it now, and we're going to talk. And if anybody, we're in the live Great Campaigns room, and anybody that's been watching this, if they show up and they want to opine as well, fantastic. It's a roundtable discussion. But Roger, now that I've got kind of a framework here that we're going to go through, but I'm going to give you an opportunity for opening thoughts on this, and then we'll just see where this takes us. So why don't you take it away while I sip my coffee?
I can't believe it's been that long. Of course, I just always am amazed when you tell us it's our anniversary and how many years we've been doing this, because we've been doing this now for quite a while, which was not my intent when I reached out to you, or I reached out to the community and you reached back to me. I just wanted to learn how to play on Vassal because I was baffled at what that was. And of course, we've been playing all through these games, and this is the first time we've tried to do this sort of session wrap up. It'd be interesting to see what people think of it. I enjoyed Thunder on the Mississippi a lot. It was a campaign that I had read quite a bit about, but this got me more deeply involved. As always, when we do one of these, I make trips to the library and use our fabulous lend from other libraries option to get even more books. And also now I'm volunteering at the Farragut Museum here in the town of Farragut, which has that naval part of this campaign, which we don't have much of. We didn't really do a lot with the naval aspect, but this has just been a fabulous, fabulous series, and I've enjoyed it greatly. And that's, I guess, those are my opening thoughts. I don't know what your thought of the whole campaign or the whole, and it's not just the campaign; it was the basic scenarios as well. So that's kind of where I'm at. It was a great experience.
I will contravene that by saying that while you were really well read and you were using this to, I guess, enact parts of what you had read from, the series of books that you had acquired. I came at it the other way, whereas I think we talked about this way at the very beginning, where there's so much focus in our just general education and appreciation of the American Civil War that everything is highly focused on the Eastern Theater. And when you do get the Western Theater, you get the big two or three. You get Chattanooga, Chickamauga, you get Shiloh, and then maybe even farther west, you get the little teeny tiny scrappy battles in Missouri, stuff like that. But this one has always just been that afterthought. It's a footnote in history, and it's really unfortunate. That drives me crazy that I am upset that we didn't get any kind of intensive information, even when I took an American Civil War class in college. Fantastic class, probably the best class I ever spent. 16 weeks in depth. We read so many academic articles. The professor was one of the premier professors in the United States. He'd written several books, and it was a joy because it that took me from sort of tier one, like, oh, this is the stuff you learn in high school, to, oh my gosh, you're spending so much time in college really getting into the academic literature of it and understanding the whys and the wherefores and all of that. Even then, with all of that, 16 weeks, it was really just a couple of notifications. And in the West, Grant takes
Oh,
Vicksburg on July 4th, and you're like, oh, okay, here, go read this. I'm like, all right, and back to the East. So this was a real eye opener for me. So I come at it now with this voracious appetite to want to go and pick up all the literature that I can for this. And I think even when we were midway, I was in a thrift store and they had this wonderful little section of books. And there were about 5 or 6 of them that were specifically about Vicksburg. And I picked up 2 or 3 of them, and I have since placed them in the library, and I need to get at them. But so this was a joy. Not only is it just the new hotness. This is anytime we get a brand new Great Campaigns title, that's obviously a reason to celebrate. But this was so many new challenges that we are going to go through in detail. So right off the top, I want to commend Chris Withers, Joe Balkowski, MMP, and everybody just in the last year, year and a half that surprised us with this amazing title. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't give credit to Alberto, who made this magnificent
Oh,
Vassal module for us to play through all this, and he keeps us sweet. So thank you to all of those. We're going to mention them highly here as we go through it. But opening thoughts, yes, this was a great pleasure for me to play through. Didn't know what to expect, again, both historically and from a gameplay perspective, and we're going to go into detail as to some of the different aspects of it. So it was pretty incredible. One of my favorite experiences thus far in the last couple of years. So let's talk about some numbers here. I've got this as the first thing on my little list here. We launched our first video for the basic scenarios, which is, I guess, the Port Gibson one, and that was first dropped on YouTube. We played it on September 17th, 2024, and we're dating this now because we are literally a couple of days away from the end of 2025. So we've spent 1 year and 3 months. So we've played 15 months of this, all the way from the very first die roll in Port Gibson all the way up to finishing last week. So we spent 6 months of that from September 2024 up until March 23rd, 2025. So we spent 6 months going through the basic scenarios. And as you know, there's 11 of those. And I'm pulling up my little spreadsheet here that'll be on the video. We went through all of the 11 basic scenarios and we played them twice. Of course, we swapped sides in there. Everyone can see the numbers on that. And then we ended up playing the advanced campaign starting in March all the way up to now. So we spent 9 months. So 6 months in the first part, 9 months, which is to be expected, playing the advanced campaign twice. That was a 15 total months. So incredible marathon stretch for us on this. And you can see the numbers there. I like to compare all of these as USA versus CSA wins to check for, quote, balance on a title. And it was 11-13. So very, very close. There were no major skews or blowouts on this. I think each side both have the same potential for winning the basic scenarios and the campaign game. And then of course we see the real skew here when we compare Roger's play and success versus mine, and he won 15 out of the 24. So it's 15-9, defeating me. So he beat me by a margin of 6, and that's tracking. That's trending pretty heavily close, because when I look at all of our totals there, and I announced this back when we had the Battlefield Gaming at Chickamauga, and I said, "Oh yeah, Roger's winning 75-56," and people went, "What?" Or I guess it was 74 at that time, and they're like, "What? He's so much better at this than you." I'm like, "Yes, yes, he is. The student has become the master." So
I'm going to just chime in here and say, Vassal, well, I don't think Vassal likes me very much. It hates you. I mean, it just hates you. When I was just stunned when I just kind of did it for this series. I kind of just went back and did a quick scroll through a lot of our gameplay, and I'm going, wow, yeah, Patrick's got a plus 4 attack, and you rolled a 1 and I rolled a 6. It's like, oh my god, it happens so often to you. It's like where you had really worked hard at getting a good modifier, and still Vassal rewarded you with a 1. It was stunning how often that happens to you.
how can I argue with that truth in the universe? I mean, it's true. I mean, it hates everyone, but it hates me just a little bit more.
Yeah, yes.
Just a little bit more.
Yeah, so some people say, I love all my children equally, but I really do like Alice. Vassal hates everybody equally, but really hates you.
And I'm okay with that. I have come to, that's again one of those axioms in the universe. It's like, you could try your damnedest, and you're gonna not only overcome your opponent, but you're gonna try to overcome the die roller, and that's okay. YouTube wise, I'm gonna pull up the YouTube data here, which I've got, and I'm pulling back the curtain for my channel analytics here. I built a playlist specifically for the advanced campaign. So this is just the advanced ones since March. But our my viewership was incredible for this whole title, and you could see the spikes there are just, and that's just true of the new hotness whenever something is brand spanking new. Like I think with the basic scenarios, it's great because every single one of those is new to people, and especially with this fairly new title. With the advanced campaign, it was everybody was like, "Yay, we're here to jump off, and see how it gets started." And then when the dice start going and the minutia happens, then you're like, we'll come back and see how we'll see how it ends. So there's huge spikes in the advanced game. The official numbers are for the basic scenarios got a total of about 7,700 views, individual views, whatever repeat views, however YouTube is analyzing those. And then for our campaign game, slightly lesser so, is 6,800 total for both playthroughs. Now, just to remind people, the first playthrough when I was the Union, uh, we hit turn 9 or session 9, and we'll talk about this in depth. I kind of threw in the towel. I was like, nope, can't. I was underwater by 15 at least manpower, and that was just untenable for the Union at that point. So I said, all right, let's start again. And then I think, as true with most of our games, Roger, is that second one really shines. I think you and I are like, oh, let's pull this lever and see how this works. And I don't know if it's because we're playing to our individual strengths with a particular side or not, but I think we've got a comfort level that has been established, and we say, okay, let's. And this one, true to form, went 68 turns and 20 sessions, so we almost completely finished it. And that I think was not only enjoyable for us, but I got a great satisfaction about letting everyone see how this. And even Mark was saying that, oh gosh, everyone gets to see all the parts of this from the beginning to the siege, and we'll talk about that. So, yeah, it's been very fruitful, and I want to thank everybody who's watched all this for continuing to support us. We are a very small pebble channel. We make small waves in the YouTube universe, but the fact that we have such a niche here and we get the people coming back and watching it, very appreciative of that. So I hope it continues to grow, but I'm a realist. I know how it works. So, with that, let's talk about the basic scenarios first. Roger, you said you went through, I kind of scanned them over. I can pull up the rule book here. We could talk about them, but top to bottom, the basic scenarios in all these titles, right? They are meant to give the individual players facets of what to expect in the advanced campaign. And nevermore was this true as in this one. I think every one of these chapters articulates what you're going to expect. So, what were your thoughts on the basic scenarios? I'm going to mute myself and let you talk about these. So, what are they? What should they expect with the basics?
I think for this title in particular, they do a great job of walking you through. You mentioned it being, 3 acts. I think these basic scenarios do walk you through. There's 11 of them, which is a lot. And they have a lot of variety to them. Each one is very different, and some of that is because, as you mentioned, this is a campaign in 3 acts, because you're dealing with the initial invasion and the issues that you're dealing with down. For those people who aren't familiar with the map, you're having the Union player. You're the one, and it is very, very much the Union player is on the offensive pretty much all the time. And you've got to get across the Bayou Pierre. That's the first obstacle, and you get a lot of opportunity to learn how to do that through the basic scenarios. And you've got to play these basics to really get an understanding of the new. There's 2 new terrains: the Los terrain and the Bluff hex side. You really need to learn about those. As always, when I started playing you, I really, at that time, I liked the 1-2 turners because I could play those really quickly by myself, but I've really now enjoyed the longer scenarios. So the one I enjoyed the most was Invasion and Breakout, which is a 5-turner. And it's the longest basic scenario. It's a scenario 2. Then they have a bunch of 3 turns. There's 2 4-turners. There's several 3-turn scenarios, and there's 2 1-turn scenarios. The first Battle of Port Gibson is a good intro point, I think, for new players. If this is your only title, I would definitely play the Battle of Port Gibson, and that gives you a good understanding of movement and fatigue. The other 1-turner, like a lot of great campaigns, it's not the battle, it's the campaign, is the Champions Hill battle, that's scenario 7. I think that's the only time we had a battle around Champions Hill on all of these. We pretty much never really fought a battle at
Definitely
Champions Hill.
a set piece. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the other 1-turner. The ones I enjoyed the most was Invasion and Breakout, which is a 5-turner, which deals with the Union Army arriving in Bruinsburg and getting across the Bayou Pierre, and then breaking out. And you cover a lot of ground in a 5-turn scenario. You've got to push to win that as the Union player. The other one I enjoyed, which is probably going to surprise you a little bit, and they do have 3 hypothetical scenarios. And one that I enjoyed was I Move at Once, which is only a 2-turner, but you have both sides have options as to how to set up. And it's a hypothetical where Pemberton is going to move to join up with Joe Johnston, and both sides get to choose where they start from. There's a lot of victory point options. Where you decide to join up is you can choose hard to easy. We'll give you more points. And I read a review. Someone wrote a review of Great Campaigns, one of the modules, and they didn't like it when there was a lot of victory point options. I prefer those because it makes replayability, a joy, because we both chose different places to go on all of these. I think we and part of it is just, for the viewership to see different options, but
right.
Also because it's interesting to see what might work, what might not. So that was my other favorite, I think, of the 2, and that's not to say that I hated playing any of these. I think the one where we had the most concern about possibly being balanced was Loring's Memorandum, which was another basic scenario. It's scenario 5. And I kind of wonder, having gone back and scrolled through that one, that was, I think, I think both Confederate made decisive victories on that, was simply because the die roller hated the Union player.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was just because it's a 4-turner, but even so, it was we just had some interesting dice combinations on those sessions. I just really like the fact that it walks you through the various components. By the time you're done, you've played everything except the siege in the basic scenarios.
Right.
You really don't deal with the siege. That's something you're going to have to pick up the advanced game and play play the advanced scenario to deal with the siege rules. And that makes sense because it's kind of, when we talk about the advanced game, we can talk about the siege and stuff like that. So that's kind of my thought on the basic scenarios. I think they just did a great job of stitching together the whole campaign. And I would point out that the fact these scenarios are fairly short, most of them, is an indication, it's a clue as the Union player what you have to do.
Exactly.
You have to move.
Exactly. Movement? What?
You cannot rest and relax.
But Grant is always drunk. No. I think with Port Gibson being the first one, I'm going to use the map here as my just some of my thoughts on the basics as well. You're going to hear me constantly coming back to this 3-act structure. It's you start in Bruinsburg. It starts very simply April 30th in Bruinsburg, and this first scenario is literally get from here to Port Gibson and figure out what you're going to do. It's 1 turn, or a couple turns. There's nothing to it really. Then, as Roger was saying, the next one, the breakout, is really just they do it again. They have you do it again, and they merge that piece with getting formally across the Bayou Pierre. And as we move into the thoughts of the advanced game, the first act of this game, and I use terrain as the good dividing points because it really does. In this whole campaign, it seems very logical that Act 1 is the Union just trying to get somehow across Bayou Pierre. They've got to confront Port Gibson, and there's really just a token force there. So these bridges here are your easy entry point across the Bayou Pierre. But realistically, when you'll see in the advanced game, they set it up for you here in basics, but in advanced, you kind of have to make a decision if you're going to push towards the Grindstone Ford, that suspension bridge there, or as I did, I tried some things where I went farther up the Bayou Pierre. But all of Act 1 is the moment the Yankees get across Bayou Pierre, then you are now into Act 2 in force, more or less. And I call Act 2 really all of the, if we are in the East, we'd call it the Overland campaign. It's the maneuver, it's the movement, it's the constant pushing of the rebels back here. The rebels are attempting to straddle the Natchez Trace, bring people across the Big Black, and just slow down Grant as much as possible. Historically, he made farther inroads faster than both Roger and I did. So in the basic scenarios, they set you along this path. Now, what I will say is, yes, we have the set piece Battle of Champion Hill. I think it's not this dogged attention to historical detail, but I think they put those in there because that's the expectation for people to play. They
Yeah.
want to see what this is. So everybody in Gettysburg, they're gonna want to see a Battle of Gettysburg scenario. This one, Champion Hill, was it the end all be all historically? Probably so, because at that point Grant was, coming back from Jackson. Now, I will say, in the basic scenarios, Jackson is far more significant in the basics than it did play out in either one of our campaign games. Now, obviously, had I tried a little harder as the Union, I think the Union can make a threat towards that way, but it is really far away, and it's 15 points. So when we get into advance, we'll talk about all those victory point conditions. But Champion Hill was one of those ones where they set you there, it's a one turn, and you roll some dice, and they will fall as they will. I don't think that's a really good indicator of this, but I understand their need for historical accuracy. But that was, I pin that onto the concept of the basic scenarios significantly weigh Jackson heavily because of the historical nature of Jackson falling. Grant went up there, he took it, and then he came back. So they give you the opportunity to really see the circumstances that he was being put through there. For us, in a gaming environment, I don't think it was nearly as significant. So Act 2 is anything up north and east of the Bayou Pierre, all the way up through Raymond, and then that's where the Union makes its decision. I think Act 3 begins officially the moment that it depends. If they come up early and they cross over the Big Black, then surely that it starts early at that point. I think you made that opportunity appear because you came and you attacked, getting ahead a little bit here. But I think Act 3 begins at some point, the siege phase, the moment they are west of the Big Black. That is Act 3, and everything at that point kind of just falls into place because now they're in siege mode. And the basic scenarios really don't let you see that. You do not experience that until you get into the advanced game, as Roger was saying. So you're getting some of it, but it's all set piece because you get, the Army of Maneuver just suddenly appears here, and you're fighting over these areas in the Muddy Creek, and the Army of Relief is trying to come in and prevent the Army of Maneuver from breaking out, and just all of that stuff. Again, set piece things, and you have a whole bunch of hexes that you're not allowed to go into because they are, quote, under siege. So the basic scenarios get you there. They give you a taste of it, but that's them saying the first hit's free, kid. You need to play the advanced game so you can really experience the weight of these decisions. So on the whole, yeah, the 11 basic scenarios are fantastic. It pains me to my soul because of the dice roller, not just with Vassal, but dice in general. Any time you have a one-turn scenario, even sometimes a two-turn scenario where it's just going to be so much dependent on dice movement and dice in combat, it's going to even out, but you need time for that to even out. In a one-turn scenario, it could go off the rails so quickly. So that's why I'm very gun shy about, hey, let's play Champion Hill. Oh, it's over because one bad
Yeah.
attack, one poor movement, whatever. And I just think it does a disservice, but you can't help but have, you need small scenarios in every one of the box sets for people to experience.
Yeah, you get four string of initiatives, and suddenly instead of a race to a VP location, a guy's there, and of course we're not entrenching on the march, but yeah, the one turn scenarios, and they're fun. I mean, they're not filling, certainly.
Right, yeah, it's filling up on cotton candy as all. Wow, this is great. We're fighting the Bottle Champion Hill. Are you though? Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think you and I both appreciate the aspect of and this has the most basic scenarios. It's got 11. I think you said that. So you get a lot in there, and some of them are, as as mentioned with the first couple, they are just a slight one and then a more robust version of the same thing. So you get to retread some of those things, but they literally take you all the way through each of the three acts up to the point where you're preparing for the siege and you're trying to break the siege, but you don't actually get the concepts, or you don't get to go through all of the little formal pieces of the siege mechanics, which they may seem boring to you, but oh, you would be wrong. They are not, because yeah, I mean there are some things where you just have to sit there and see how they play out, but you have agency. You have surprisingly more agency as the Confederates being surrounded than you do, or at least that I expected. So let's pivot over into the advanced game. I have started this. What we're looking at now is the completion point. This is where we finished last week. Union managed to get into Vicksburg's. Spoilers, if if you're coming into this one, what is wrong with you? So the Union captured Vicksburg, and they would then succeed through the Vicksburg surrender phase. And so I'm going to start us here and to talk about. We're going to just hammer home a lot of the things that we have mentioned through basics, but I think we could focus on a little more heavily now. So again, Act One, you're way down here. And I think the challenge for the Union is you have at least one, two, three, four, five, six, seven options there as the Union. When you played the Union here in the second one, what was your factoring point for how you decided where and initially when your plan was? Because obviously we make a plan fails, and we got to adapt to the plan. That's great campaigns. But what did you use as a determining factor on how and where you were going to try to cross?
when I looked at this, and to some extent, obviously, it's great. This was really good for me that you started out as the Union on the offense, because that gave me some things to look for, things to look at. And what I did, is I force marched my units right away, which some people commented was kind of crazy, but I got a good force march roll and was able. I've actually brought up that log file, and I was able to get Hovey right there next to the bridge on the very first turn, which gave me that option now to go after and to isolate and take Port Gibson quickly, because you weren't able now to get across the bridge to support Greene. And then I was able to force my way across in strength, because I was able to beat you to that spot. So that was what I looked at, is I just was going to go as fast and as hard as I could right away, and it paid off. And then I got good force march rolls. So that was the option that I chose, was to push straight at that bridge. And the bridge I'm talking about is the bridge at Ashland over the Bayou Pierre, before you had a chance to destroy it. And that was what I was going to do, and then build bridges if I had to cross there. That was my whole point, was to shorten the gap, because I felt like I needed to get to Grand Gulf for supply purposes for the next phase. About the only time in this game where I felt like I had actually a good, that was for the starting point, was I had to get Grand Gulf quickly, so I could then, because that's in the advanced game, for those who aren't familiar with the title yet, supply for the Union is a very key component, and you really need to be thinking about that after the first strategic cycle. first two strategic cycles. You can't build a depot until turn 10. And so that was my plan. Get Grand Gulf as quickly as possible.
And I will say that here in the situation with Ashland, yes, you caught me. You caught me by surprise. You surprised everybody. You're like, I'm going to force march. I'm like, that's kooky talk. And yet, I was ill prepared because when I did move, I think I moved the force across Ashland. What did I not do? Because what do I always forget to do? Blow the bridge, Patrick. Blow up the bridge.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh, he's got days before he gets there because the die roller hates us all. No, you rolled like a 6 and you force
Yeah.
marched and you were there. It's like, well, okay, so now I have to defend that bridge. So that was a surprise because you did different than I did, where I focused on just bringing up force, a sizable force to Port Gibson and then chase you across or make a crossing there and try to get something down here, which turned out it could have worked, but again, it's very dependent on the luck of movement rolls and being able to cross at key points. So I would probably do it the way that you did it. I think making out an option here and trying to force something right here. There's a choke point that the Confederates can control, but if you force them to defend Grand Gulf, then you have the opportunity maybe to go farther upstream to bring another group up here. It really just depends on if you're going to split your force. But I think you getting across Ashland really changed the whole tempo because now I couldn't. I think I was able to build some kind of a line here, but it was a line of just waiting to see how successful you were going to be at Grand Gulf because at that point I think parked Green back in there just to keep him with tactical and let you worry about it. And you took your time, you built it up, but at the same time you were probing over here as well. So this is into the early part of Act Two is how long can you slow down because you have to blow up all of these things to prevent to keep them in the box. This one, Hankinson's bridge, is such a. We'll talk about that puzzle in a minute because you want to use it for yourself, but you want to blow it up to deprive it. So there's a timing aspect to this one, but I think both you and I, we chose the Natchez Trace. That's the obvious northeast route as the Union, and you were slightly more successful than I because I think I got all the way to here. I think we both did, but you managed to make that left turn once you hit that force in 5 Mile Creek. So yeah, that's pretty much Act Two, and it depends on. In the basic scenarios, they take you all the way up, and you're threatening Raymond, and you're threatening Jackson, and all that. And neither you nor I had that experience. Obviously, our advanced campaign ended the first time right here because I threw in the towel. But you managed just with a couple of great key battles and moments, managed to force Hall's Ferry. And now, all of this up here that you can prepare for goes out the window for the Confederates because now you have to move down here and start preparing for Act 3.
I'll just go back to when you were playing the Union. I think an important. I didn't spend a lot of time looking at those, but the thing that I did see was how often, and then this is where I say the dice roller really hates you. And in that particular instance, was you were trying to stretch me to the east, staying out of the Los and staying south of the Bayou Pierre in a race to those bridges and fords. If I needed an initiative and a good movement roll to block that, I got that movement in die roll and was able to build up just enough strength to where you had to continue to move east, which slowed you down considerably.
Right. Yeah.
If you'd have gotten an initiative and a good die roll, you'd have been across and would have completely flanked my positions to the south, and I would have had to have abandoned the various lines I built at these crossroads in the Los or on the Natchez Trace, Miss Bagnell, Floyd Cemetery, then back at Rocky Springs. I mean, I was just had a constant falling back position and defending the ferry or destroying the ferries and keeping you because of the swamps. There's only a couple places where you can build bridges, across the big
Right.
black,
Exactly. Yeah. Where there's existing roads connecting. Yeah.
where there's existing roads. So it's fairly easy for the Confederacy to park somebody there. One guy who has plenty of time to build a entrench.
I think we even joked about it that you were hamstrung in the first game as Confederates. It was just constant CSA paralysis, movement paralysis,
Oh yeah,
paralysis, and yet you'd get CSA movement paralysis, and then you'd roll six, and
road
you're like, oh
six.
hey,
Yeah,
I'm gonna get to here, and I'm gonna get to
yeah,
here, and it's like, okay, what paralysis? I don't think that means
yeah,
what you think it means.
yeah, yeah. It didn't. Yeah, I think it rarely, even when I had command paralysis and I needed to activate 2 or 3 units. I was able to get 2 or 3 initiatives in a row to pull my guys back before you could surround them.
It was maddening as the Union player, but so much fun because it's like, oh, I've got to try something different now, and I think that was
Yeah.
just what the gift that kept giving.
And the flip side for me when I was the Union, I had the I was so you weren't able to piece together the not that you were you had nothing to do with it. The die roller didn't allow you to piece together those initiatives, and I was able to slog my way through the Los. And also just something I was able to do while we were playing this is I actually did get to go to Vicksburg and spend several days there with my wife. And while we were initially, I was like, man, they really overdid this Los business. And it's like you go out there and you see it, and you go, they underdid it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It is incredible. That terrain. It's obviously not bad, equally as bad everywhere, but it's still pretty bad. I mean, in terms of maneuvering 5,000 men in a division, 10,000 men, however big their divisions would have been. Yeah, it would have taken hours to get through that terrain with the roads. So I think what you did should have worked. You just got unlucky.
Yeah, yeah. There are really, I think, three lines here that the Confederates can build. There's the first one, the Floyd, as you said, Miss Bagnell Floyd Cemetery. That's just because everyone's coming down that way from Hankinson's Bridge. So you start there, and hopefully you're not facing a Union flank across the grindstone. But even then, you're controlling that. So the presumption is the Union is somewhere in here, as it was in our second game, and you push, and then you have if we're likening it to auto bodies, you have crumple zones, right? And you can fall
Mm-hmm.
back then to Rocky Springs, and that's line number two. And indeed, that happened. You got, once you started getting McClernand, God help us all, McClernand was starting to keep his corps in a strong position. If you get a good assault or something and you punch through Rocky Springs, okay, now you fall back and you rally on this line from the Fisher Ferry line, and you have three or four lines that from northwest to southeast that the Confederates can build bulwarks, and at that point, as you mentioned, is you can try to stretch them because now the Union is being stretched for that whole front. They're also trying to push a flank around, and you can wheel the left Confederate flank. You can wheel the right. Where it got unfortunate was you get into this little zone right here where you're coming out of the Los, and one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to, and you threaten with Sherman up here, right? In our second game, you threaten with Sherman, and now he's in a position where like, hey, I'm I'm the goat, and I don't have to worry about this Los business anymore because I'm in all of this nice terrain. So he's making successful assaults and just pushing them away, pushing the Confederates back. I think at one point I fell all the way back to Auburn, War Eagle, whatever, not the Auburn, but an Auburn, and they fell all the way back here, and that leaves you directly into this capability where you can just make that left turn and force the beginning. So you said, to hell with Jackson, I'm just going right for the siege, and that is the big choice. Do you put the 15 points from Jackson? Do you leave that on the table? Do you try to push for those meager little railroad crossings up there or the railroad stations and burn those? There's not a lot because in the advanced game it's about 50 points. That's the magic number.
Yeah.
And you, with your mastery of spreadsheets, was able to figure out, hey, if I do this and I get to siege by this point, then I can get this minus that, and that's how you put it together. And clearly, you have to do that. You have to have some kind of an overarching plan to say, I need at least 30 points from siege time. I need some manpower losses to add to it, and you just build this little template, right? I mean, it sounds complex and it's probably scaring people away that have not played an advanced game, but it's really not. You just have to say, I need some from column A, some from column B, and you have to hope that this goes right. And once Act 3 starts, that's in motion. You're almost committed to it. Really, the only flexibility you have is what you did. The Army of Maneuver comes up here and says, oh, well, let's go hunting, boys. And you had one really good day at that.
Yes, I had one really good day, and going back through the second campaign, there's a place here. I talked about going fast. And it was about from about turn 25 through turn 29. And I went and watched the videos because I didn't have a log file for those. For whatever reason, I forgot to start a log. And I got, because you had the Army of Relief came in. That's something that went well for you, was you got the Army of Relief fairly early. For those people aren't aware, the Army of Relief is Joe Johnston's army. By rule, he's kind of constrained. You're rolling against the table to see how quickly he arrives, and then you're kind of building up on another table to see how much freedom he has. And you got him released to the Big Black River fairly soon, and I had opportunities to attack Vicksburg forts before you were able to man them and destroy them. I might probably not take Vicksburg, but destroy those forts. And I got gun shy and I got nervous, and I didn't try. I mean, that's all you can say. I didn't try because I was worried about it. Wouldn't have been great attacks, +2 maybe, +1 maybe if you'd gotten the artillery die roll. And I got nervous about it. I didn't want to have a unit sitting there at T4, exhausted, disorganized, with forts to the, with Confederate forces to the front and undestroyed forts to the rear. So I didn't take the shot. And that put me behind schedule, because there's definitely a schedule. You've got to, and this is, I won't say this is a negative thing about, and you just don't want to scare people away, but yeah, you've got to really look at the rules and understand how these points are going to accumulate to have that timing in your head. How fast do I need to move? And I slowed down. I was watching myself going, oh, wow, I remember now. I was worried about Patrick doing this to me.
Right? It's the looming threat, the Phantom Menace.
And as you watch your video, you could see I'm looking at, I've got it up on my kind of on turn 25, and I remember thinking pretty good. I was like, man, I've got guys across the Big Black in numbers. I've got my supply depot at Warrenton. I'll be in supply. I can relax now because most of your army's now to the east of me, but I don't move fast, and you're watching the video, you can see your troops just pivot and go rolling into Vicksburg. And by turn 29, you've got all those forts fully manned, fully entrenched, and there's nothing I could do but sit there and put you under siege.
Exactly, and the sweet irony of this is that I think it's the square fort here at Cotton Gin. That was the one that I think everyone, it might have been the South Fort, one of the two down here.
No, it was that one.
It was that one. So everybody's like, why didn't you take a shot at that one? Why, Roger? And that's the one that was the linchpin that got you the victory. So it all came back around for you. You destroyed that one. You worked your way in here. You had the help of the gunboats, and then, of course, ultimately took Vicksburg. So there is a cosmic balance in all things. I just think that it was kind of a fun little twist on that, where they were just giving you all kinds of grief. Why didn't you take a shot at it? And it's not like when I'm looking at the schedule here, because when you put it under siege, I think the siege started and you had a water crisis right at that moment. But there was no, I think you were just ultimately afraid of rain or just manpower losses. I know manpower losses for sure.
I think manpower losses, the fact that you had enough, looking at the situation, was you had enough manpower that where you could have cut my army in two and I didn't want to have guys, and I would have had, basically the situation was I would have had to attack on the march, and I didn't have a lot of manpower. So I didn't have a ratio. It's low. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I got to roll a 5 or better to get the type attack. I only had a 2-to-1 ratio, and there's no tactical because it's a fort. You didn't have any guys in the fort even. And I remember thinking, well, that could be a +1 attack.
Right. And you're like, oh, woe be to me with a +1 attack.
And it's gonna, if I lose, I could lose manpower losses. I could take a manpower loss. I could be disorganized, stay exhausted, and then he could just get smacked because those forts, you can't retreat into them, and he had no retreat path. He could he could very easily been destroyed at that point, or at least really. And at that point, my manpower losses, I was in the negative. I was in the hole. So I just thought, but looking at the map, I'm thinking, well, it doesn't matter. I have enough time to get manpower up there. I'll get a better ratio.
And speaking of that, I think that's a perfect moment to mention this. I think the mental aspect of this campaign is such. Jerome pointed it out on Facebook the other night after he watched this, and he said, wow, Patrick, if you hadn't lost 16 manpower in one session, Roger would not. And this is absolutely true because I know your playstyle now. You did not do that because the manpower losses were so close and you were in the hole and you did not want to make it worse. But the fact that you were afforded by going from negative up to positive whatever 10 or 11, you got so many manpower losses banked from me that you were like, oh well, yeah, I can totally take a shot at this now. And you were making some heavy duty attacks with just one division from McClernand. And you're like, send him in. And he went in there at a 1-to-6 ratio, and you took 2 or 3 losses on that, but still you had so many in your favor that had that one session not occurred where I had lost so many to keep myself on my, how do I want to say this, to keep the manpower losses in my favor, then I think that siege would have played out very, very differently, to be sure.
Oh, where I was thinking, and just to be clear for people who aren't aware, once you get Vicksburg under siege, the Union player does begin to accumulate points. 1 point for every 2 turns under siege. And if you can get Vicksburg under siege earlier than I did, you can win the game not taking Vicksburg. But I was about 10 days behind the historical schedule, which tells you how fast Grant was moving. Because not only did he get it under siege, he destroyed Jackson at the same time. So he would have won this decisively. Holger kept, I think it was Holger kept commenting because I kept saying, man, I don't have a plan. Because it's like I was doing the numbers on my spreadsheet. And I was just playing against history. Well, okay, Pemberton surrendered on July 3rd. That's just because, or July 4th, just because that's what he did. He could have held out for another 2 weeks. And I decided, well, the only way I can even come close is I have to destroy the Army of Relief and destroy Jackson. That was the only way. And so that was my intention. And I just got blind out lucky that my mine attack succeeded after I failed 2 mine attacks, I believe, at that point, and lost manpower. And which is the negative of the mine attacks. But my mine attack succeeded on turn 60, the strategic cycle. And then I had to roll 1, I think, to have it succeed, which it did. And then you had the 1-6 split, but it happened over like 10 minutes. And then you had to roll your Vicksburg demoralization, and you just had to avoid rolling a 6. And the only reason you rolled a 6. And the only reason that even mattered was because I had destroyed the fort earlier with my mine explosion. If that doesn't happen, if I roll a 2 or you roll a 5, none of that happens. There is no attack. It wouldn't have been game over, but it would have been awfully close to it.
Yeah, I came into that last session thinking, I'm cautiously, the whole last 2 sessions, I think I was cautiously optimistic. We're playing it out to see what happens, but I think on paper, short of him doing that one thing, as Doctor Strange says, the one in a million thing. Short of him doing that one thing, I got it on the numbers because we're going to hit turn 70, and then he's going to fall short by 10, 12 points, and lo, your perseverance paid off, and you got in there, which is fantastic. But yeah, it was a series of unfortunate events for me as a CSA, but that's fine.
If you go back to the attack that I successfully got the retreat on, if I roll 1 and you roll 4, it's even, right? And I went in with 39 manpower. That's a 4D loss for me. You don't take any losses. So now it doesn't bring us back to even with manpower losses at that time, but it means even if I take Vicksburg and now I'm not taking Vicksburg on turn 67, I'm probably not taking it on turn 68 because I don't have enough guys left. I've got to somehow put together some sort of attack force. Let's say I do take it on turn 70. I still don't have enough points to win the game.
Right, because you only get 30 for that, and then
30 for that, and then I had to have it's like somebody who wins, down by 17 with 2 minutes to go in a football game. It's like you had to have everything go right, and it did.
And that's why we play the game, Roger.
Well, yeah, that's what everybody was saying. I was playing it out more just to see how the siege worked. Though, Mark Greenwood, who didn't join us today, I was talking to Mark yesterday, and he was like saying, well, you did roll really badly on there's fort degradation, I went way under 50% on those rolls, which is just 50% chance of getting any result. Like, was the siege is an interesting aspect of the campaign. I think they did a really good job of integrating that into the rule set. I guess I would say for people, if this is your only title, do not be afraid to jump on play this advanced game. It is a little intimidating with the rules set. If you have like Hood Strikes North, and I would make that your first advanced game personally, that's a little easier to get your mind around.
Without a doubt. I mean, everything, this came up just online yesterday when people are still, in this day and age, hey, we're still new to the great campaigns, and I want to foster them along. I think that's the service we're providing here. But I get people that I know that I've known for years that are like, oh yeah, I'm just now trying it, and they're reticent to try the advanced campaign. Oh, it just seems like so much, and I want to do the Maryland campaign, but ellipses. And I say, well, here's the video, here's Roger and I doing it. And then we took it one step further and we did the Fog of War rules. And I say, don't let that be the barrier to entry. The basic scenarios are totally fine, totally serviceable. Some of them, because we use them in tournament play, are classics. We're going to talk about one here I think that's going to be a classic for this. But don't let the 12 pages of advanced circumstantial rules stop you from this. Anybody can do these advanced, and that's why they're there. That's because you get the full experience of this. And if you're just playing the basic scenarios, that's totally cool. You're still getting some of the experience. You're just not getting that whole shining experience that is like, oh my gosh, it's raining today. What do I do now? You don't get all of that wonderful event-driven narrative that I play these games for. So
we haven't even talked about heat.
Let's show them the heat.
I can't remember, somebody else was playing this and we both commented, boy, they're getting a lot of heat. And then we played like, oh, no wonder we're getting a lot of heat. It's like the only frickin' thing on the random event chart.
That's right. It's all heat. It's hot. So yeah, don't be scared. Don't be scared. Just get in there and try it, because as I described it online, it's very procedural. I mean, if you pull up the little thing here and you've got the sequence of play, just follow the sequence of play.
Yeah.
If you make a little error, just take a step, stop for a second, go back, and some of it you can fix. Like, oh, we skipped this phase. Let's, okay, here, do you have any attachments? Okay, you do it. So if you just follow that, and then don't worry about all the stuff. Don't worry about, oh my gosh, what does this random event mean? What happens? How does the siege work? Don't deal with any of that until it comes up. So different titles, as Roger mentioned, Hood Strikes North is fantastic because it's very linear. You got to get from A to B as quickly as possible, and then B back to A before you die. There's that. Maryland campaign they all have their own flavors and circumstances, and that's why we we, as some of the more experienced players, we play them to see like what the hell is Los? What does that mean? And you get to enjoy those challenges because it's samey enough that you're like, oh, roll for initiative, but it's also different enough like, oh, wait a minute, okay, it's raining and I've got Los and I've got a terrible, oh, what do I do? And those circumstances are exactly why we play the challenge, right? See if we can figure it
Yeah,
out. Not only am I going to try to beat Roger, but I got to beat the system too, which is fantastic. And that damn die roller. But that's another game.
and when you're playing, and people who may be saying, "Man, you guys have been playing this for 15 months." We play about 2 hours a session, which is most people I think probably play twice that much. We play. I've certainly tried to play slower as because I, I really take it kind of semi personally when people, oh, you messed this rule up. It's like, ah, crap. So I do try to go a little slower, probably than I would be if I was just playing this. Okay, I'm trying to catch our mistakes as you are too. So it plays fairly fast. I think that the system does. And yeah, and if you're playing this Third Run of the Mississippi, strategic cycle comes up once every 5 turns. Just when it hits that, just keep your sequence of play in front of you, and just go through each thing.
Exactly.
And by the time you've done it, by the time we did this, by the time we got into turn like 20, 25, it was okay. I know what we're going to do next. But yeah, I've got to go look up the table and roll for things. But it does play pretty quickly. So I don't want to turn people away from it. It's just it and be intimidated by it at all.
And the enjoyment factor I'm having, this is where I give a little shout out to some of my fellow YouTube channel creators out there. But I have noticed just since we've been doing this in the last 5 years, obviously with this channel, but I'm finding with a lot of the new enthusiasts for great campaigns out there. So people like Alex from the Player's Aid and Todd from Wardrobe and Hexy and all of them that were just getting into it. And now I'm out there on YouTube. I'm getting suggestions for, hey, we just played through this campaign, and they're doing like video over your shoulder on the table with the actual pieces and everything. That's excellent. So I love that this is getting out there far and wide. So the enthusiasm for great campaigns is growing. I won't say we had a huge part of that. I would never be so immodest, but I think just in the last 5 years there has been a burgeoning renaissance for this, and people like Ken Lee and folks that are really building this up at Winter Offensive and his stuff with the Battlefield gaming, which was amazing this past year, and I'm looking forward to Antietam. We're seeing something that is very unusual for a game or a game series that is now 33 years old, and it's getting this whole new breath of fresh air in a different way. So this title, I think, is going to contribute to that. To that end, let's talk about. You said your favorite basic scenario of this. I have one too, and I think it's going to be the classic that they use for WBC and any tournament play, and the one that keeps coming back to me because I enjoyed it so much was Yankee Blitzkrieg, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think that was such a nice little encapsulation. That is Grant right here in this point here. It's the beginning of Act 2, and he's got to get as far as possible, as quickly as possible, and it really focuses on that maneuver and then the scramble by the CSA to just put together this patchwork defense. And it's just you're fighting over these little territories here: Rocky Spring, Floyd Cemetery, Ms. Bagnell, all that. But that's a focal point of this whole campaign, is right there, because either one of 3 things is going to happen. The Union's going to be just stymied right there, which we saw a little bit of it in our advanced games. They're going to break through and kind of go this way, or they're going to go this way. Depending on your playstyle, which we're going to talk about here next, anything can happen. And of course, the events are going to craft that narrative as well. So, in the thought of, let's talk about playstyles and things that considerations for players of this particular title. Do you have any thoughts on USA versus CSA on this? I mean, they're obviously pre-scripted in what they need to do, but from your experience of playing both sides now, how would you approach them?
I think if you're the Union, if you're playing the advanced game, which I guess is the one place I feel I can make a comment as the Union player, as part of the strategic cycle, you get an extended. You're probably going to get the a modifier for your extended marches, which is a positive or it's a -1 to your die rolls. And the Confederates and the random events are probably going to get hit with movement or command paralysis, which affects their ability to march or effectively organize a command. You've got to take advantage when you have both of those on your favor and move, because as I talked about, I was so incredibly lucky that I got the 1-6 split over a 10-minute period. If that doesn't happen, then I'm going to lose the game. And the only way you can get around that is you've got to move. You've got to keep moving, and you've got to avoid, and I talked about heat, and the third act is that the random events table has 3 columns, and when you get into the June, July column, you're going to get hit with heat, which is a +1 on all your extended die rolls. And you no longer are going to get that extended march bonus, the -1. So if you're trying to march any great distance, you're not going to get very far. I mean, your guys are going to fall apart. And,
Absolutely. Yep.
So you've got to basically be in the position of laying siege, getting that part done, or as neither one of us was able to get to Jackson. And that's the one thing I think I would like to when I play this again as the Union, I would try to do. But I just think you got to just bite the bullet, man, and just take that hit of going, okay, I'm going fatigue 3, going fatigue 4 if I can get away with it, and try to cover ground and get through the Los, because the Los is not your friend as an attacker, because you can't get. It's hard to set up flanks. You just got to get through the Los, which takes up a huge chunk of that map. So that would be the one thing I would say. And I don't know what your thoughts are on the basic games or on the campaign game, but that's my thought.
Similar, since the onus is really on the Union. I could speak now, having I'll say it. I failed as the Union in my campaign game, and then I knew better how to defend against the Union as the Confederates. I think you're absolutely right. The it's maneuver, it's is move, 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 and if you are not moving in May, and I'm going to pull up our calendar here. If you have not moved as far as you need to move towards Vicksburg to set things up by, say, the last week of May here, which is our fourth row on here, turn 31 and higher. If you're not almost in place, you're going to get hit a lot with heat, because once you hit that June column, it's we laughed about it, and then there it was. I mean, it was so prevalent. Heat, heat, heat. So that is going to that's just going to devastate if you are at all exhausted, then you're going to just fall apart. You're going to be disorganized. Those units are not going to be effective in the field. So at that point, you should be preparing a siege line. That being said, the Los also challenges you because it's like Forest, right? In the regular game, so there are stacking penalties for moving through friendly, and these large Union divisions, as you're trying to get into a much more confined space, it's going to get harder and harder. So you are almost just taking the one hex move. Yay, we're moving a hex. Yay, we're stacking up. Right. So expect that in Act 3 that they need to be almost to where you want them to be. So have a plan about, like, okay, McClernand's Corps is going to be on the south end here of Vicksburg. I'm going to have it try to keep all the Union pieces with their cohesive leadership. If you don't do that, if you're straggling and scattered and all sorts of things, then you're going to have problems. Also, I think you far more effectively than I use substitutes. You were dropping subs everywhere all the time, which I think the Union needs to do to defend rear areas as you pass by them. Because as the Confederates, I was like, oh, wow, he went right by that ferry. Let me go see if I can destroy it, or hit him from the back. So I think substitute usage is incredibly important because you've got big union divisions, so don't feel, don't have any worry about dropping a one or two sub here, there, and everywhere because that's what they're there for. I think, and this is the Confederate wise, so much of it is wait and see and just build the best defense that you can. Make sure you're covering the tactical. Don't leave any room for the Union because what they're going to do is you want to force them, especially in these Los areas, with building the biggest attempt at a grand assault or even a regular assault with multiple divisions. And more than likely, with that modifier for the Los, it's going to fail. So they're only going to get a token force in. So if you can get to a place and dig in, this is true, of course, in all great campaigns, but this one even more so if you can defend a location with breastworks or better in some of these areas and prevent flanks, that's a whole challenge in and of itself. Then the Confederate playstyle is just build the best defense that you can. And I personally don't think in terms of trying to get manpower losses, but take advantage of the opportunities as they present. Um, the Confederates usually have an opportunity with a smaller force to inflict more damage. I think that's a complaint that some people have, where they come in with 6 manpower and they're hitting these large 12 or bigger divisions, and they're inflicting some token manpower losses. I think that's a way you can give them death by lots of little paper cuts in this game. So if you can keep the manpower margin close, then the Confederates have a really good chance for this. Don't make foolish attacks. Don't leave yourself open to really powerful Union attacks with those multiple divisions coming in and surrounding. A lot of this is just it's fundamentals, as John Madden would say. But in this one, play the Los to your advantage, and we can use this as a pivot to talk about the terrain and the Los. Is there anything that you want to add about the Los on this one? Because that is the most significant difference with this title against all others.
One of the things, we were playing Grant Takes Command and we're about to enter the wilderness again. It's still on his last battle is I hate the wilderness. As much as I hate the wilderness, I hate this Los even more because it covers even more terrain. Again, like having visited the area, it's the penalties are under. It's just something, and I got used to it. We obviously, you're playing the basic scenarios. Half of it is played in the Los, and it's just something you've got to take into consideration, and it's something that you're going to really look at your your command rating. McClernand with a 4. For whatever reason, McClernand seems to be the Union Corps commander who, for whatever reason, seemed to be the guy that I was relying on the most to pull off these corps assaults with a 4, with a -1, which means it's really a 3. And then moving through it one hex at a time. You've got to just take that in, and setting up a flank is because it's the same as Woods for restricted Zoc. It's just a lot of work, and I think you've for the Union player, you've got to have that combination of impatience and patience. You got to understand it's going to be slow, but you've got to push through it and get out of it if you can. And it doesn't. The one thing I'd be interesting. I don't know if you've ever done the analysis of using artillery in Los. It seems like we rarely, as the defender, despite the fact we might be rolling, we rarely got the artillery.
Right. Oh yeah. I know I'm underwater on that one. I hardly ever got it unlimbered.
Because it's pretty much a 50-50. We're almost always rolling. I think for Los, you're always rolling to see if it's applied.
Yeah, it's even odd, right?
It's even odd. So it's just that's my thoughts on it. I it's got to be there because that's what the terrain is. But boy, it was kind of fun when I got east of the Los and we were fighting it out around Mars Hill Church and Queens Hill and east of Rocky Creek. That was fun.
I will just chime in and say that I like the challenges that the Los provides, but at the same time, and I think many times we overlook the fact that because it is like Woods, that restricted Zoc can be quite helpful. So this is the chess match aspect of it, where you can kind of set things up, and if you have a unit that you have sub uh, just to give an example, let's see, sub 6 is here, and I want to bring Maxi by, I can go right on through with no problem
Yes.
because that's a restricted sock. So if you're paying attention and if you're looking for those little gotcha moments where he's like, oh, I can go right around him and I can sneak right by and I can get to this other place, then having Los available to you is another tool in the toolbox. So, it giveth and it taketh. It does make it more challenging for combat, but at the same time, it does provide a lot of capabilities for I'm moving right around you, and you don't even know I'm there because there's giant sand hills in the way, and you don't hear me coming.
And if you look at where Maxie is at Freeman, where he was, and you start looking at determining flanks, you look at Maxie and think, boy, he's in a terrible spot. All 6 hexes are covered. Actually, 4 of those hexes, well, 3 of those hexes are going to come off.
Right, so it's back down to a +1. So
Yeah, it's back down to a +1. So it's not, he hasn't set himself up that much for disaster. And simultaneously, if you could get somebody into Wall or Williamson, sub 6 is now sitting there with a.
Yeah, now they're hurting. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so he could be in serious trouble. So it's really, that's something, and people know I struggle with it because I bring it up every time. Okay, what exactly is this going to look like when we walk through it? Because I think it's just something that I struggle with, which is why I hate the wilderness.
This is the one that gets you all the time. Is like he's here, and he moves to here. I'm like, well, yeah, it's he's in an unrestricted, and he's moving to a restricted, or he's restricted, right, moving to unrestricted. He's fine.
It just seems wrong to me that he's able to do that. It's
right.
Like, no, man, the terrain's, and also having seen it, it's like, no, he's going to become disorganized.
Right, and that's you have to look at it a second time.
If he's here going here, he's going to become disorganized because that terrain is crap. Right. It's just, there's no way he's not going to leave guys in ravines, and guys are going to get tired, and it's going to be because it's that terrain is terrible.
That's what the mules are for,
It's minimal. And the one thing, I guess, and I did help play test towards the end, and I did a lot of review, really, is what I did on this title more than anything. I did a little bit of play testing with Mark. The one thing I wish they would have added, and maybe this just adds a little too many prom or too many rules to it, is if Grant is in the same, Grant specifically as an army leader, is in the same hex as the corps commander, I think for the Grand Assault, he should get a -1 to his die roll. Personal view. I would try to, if I was going to house rule something, that's what I would house rule.
Incentivize the, hey, no, I really want you to do this.
Yeah, incentivize, because I think that's also, historically accurate. I mean, the consensus of officers and enlisted men is that when Grant was around, things happened.
Right, and you look at everything in the East where if you've got Lee there, you get a combat bonus. Perhaps this would be a good way to give
bonus.
Yeah, give
be a way to give an incentive to the Union player that doesn't. It's not that big of a. I don't think that would affect play balance that much. But also, I think it's historically accurate. Like I said, I mean, it was pretty, like he shows up in Chattanooga and suddenly stuff starts to happen.
Sure.
He would travel with the guy he thought he needed the most attention, except for McClernand, who he hated, which is really why he didn't spend time with McClernand.
And he should have, right? Peter Principle.
And he should have.
That's right.
He should have. And he probably, that's, sometimes when you don't like somebody, you just don't like somebody.
That's true. You mentioned play balance, and the last 2 things I had on my list here were, before we talk about any play balance issues, which I'll just go ahead and spoiler, I don't think that there are per se, but notice that the CSA is all brigades here. They're all not much smaller, but they're smaller in the East. We saw like demi divisions and things like that, where they're just structurally smaller in their organization. Here, all of Pemberton and Johnston and French and Bowen, all of them, they are dealing with brigades as their smallest unit, and Grant is working with divisions. on the whole. So there are corps commanders with individual divisions, so much larger. But in situations like this, we see Crocker's only got 5, but Maxey's a brigade, and he's got 2,000 men instead of 2,500. So did you find that that was an issue, or is that just totally, that's just Chrome on this as far as the design aspect of it? Did that affect your play style at all?
I think what it did in the context of the advanced games where we had the attachment detachment, I was trying to bulk up some divisions to create a hammer. We had a maximum of 12 on divisions,
Right.
and so I would strip a division and leave him in the rear with to protect my supply line, and then try to get them transferred to build up another division and to try to build up. I did that a lot with McClernand. I stripped a lot of his guys and transferred them Sherman's, basically because I wanted Sherman to be. Of course, McClernand, I had to choose 2 MVPs. It's going to be Washburn and McClernand. So I think it gives the Union a lot more flexibility because you can drop a division down to the size of a Confederate brigade, which off the top of my head I can't remember the
I think
brigade
it's
size. I think
6. I'd say
it's
yeah,
capped at
they're half a
6.
division. Yeah, so they're
So you could cut a division, a Union division. You could strip him down to 2 with breastworks, and he becomes a hard target for a Confederate brigade. So I think it gives the Union a lot of flexibility to bulk up his divisions versus the Confederate brigades. I think it was a disadvantage, but I think it's also historical. I mean, it is what it was. I mean, you can't, as a, if you're trying to, sometimes I think the designers do a great job of combining the 2 elements of an emulation/simulation with a game and making it competitive. And I think that's just part of the emulation simulation. They couldn't just add guys to the Confederates just to make it an even game.
and they
It
also
is what.
combine that with the ruling that because of the unique nature of the individual CSA brigades, Maxey could not just roll into Evans, not only for size
Yes.
considerations, but you could not merge any of them. So it's really, you're only dealing with subs. So there's no chance of just taking, oh, I'm going to combine Evans and McNair into this one super duper. No, they need their aristocratic individual because all of those guys, they had their own little, reasons for having their brigades.
It's very likely if he'd have tried that if Pemberton would have tried it, he probably would have had a duel on his hands.
Probably. I demand satisfaction.
Yeah, because these guys were very, very much in that
The genteel of
mindset.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Um, and I think that the other aspect of this, people go, wow, like you mentioned the paralysis on the Confederate side. Again, I think the designers were trying, I don't know what their motive was, but they certainly had to try to deal with the historical fact that Pemberton and Johnson, and then at the higher level, Jefferson Davis, were not on the same page as to how to do this. Pemberton was, do I defend Vicksburg? Do I combine with Johnson? Johnson was telling him, you come to me. Davis was saying, no, you got to defend Vicksburg. And hence some of the historic or the hypothetical scenarios where Pemberton was not getting along with his commanders, like Loring. So that's why that's there.
Not nearly as bad as Bragg, of course, dealing with all of his subordinates, but yes, there's a general dysfunction, I think, on the Confederate side, because of all those.
Yeah, I mean that's why, to some extent, that's why Grant was able to do what he was able to do. I mean, I think the Yankee Blitzkrieg starts with there's no Confederate forces. Get this off the top of my head. I think the starting setup for that scenario is Confederate forces aren't anywhere near Grant.
Right, right.
Or both of our style play was we got guys we stuck close to him. Well, Pemberton didn't do that. He kept away because he didn't know where Grant was. Again, that's just you know the lack of fog of war is just part of the issue that a game designer has to deal with. That everybody has perfect knowledge of where everybody is.
And I mean, that's a common concern for this. That was one of the discussion topics. People are like, well, if I know everything, if I have perfect information, I'm like, yes, but that's what the dice are for, right?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
what the dice are for, and that's why they throw in these random
the random
events
events,
that
exactly.
try to add a little bit of that fog of war. Is you don't know, if you're sitting there as a Confederate player, and you're, man, I got a great assault for next turn, and then you get command paralysis. Well, guess what? You're not doing it.
Exactly. And I just to piggyback on where you were saying about your one wish for review of this with Grant being helpful. I would say that in our experiences that I wish Jackson. I'm highlighting Jackson now. I wish Jackson, from a historical perspective, had slightly more value as an incentive for Grant. Right now, 15 points. It
Oh,
I know it's kind of like, would 20 points be a little more worthwhile in the big scheme of that? Because clearly, if you're trying to simulate history, you want to say, well, there's a reason he went there. Is it because it's the capital? Is it because it's the rail hub? Is it just because that's where you thought that Johnson was going to show up? What are all of those reasons, and why would you encourage a player in their maneuvering to take that time to say, you know what? Maybe Jackson's the bigger enchilada. Now, is it on par with, should it have the same amount? Should we see the siege of Jackson? No, I'm not saying that. But I think from a historical perspective in the scholarship, there's a reason that he did that and then came back. So I think to encourage that in the advanced game, maybe just a little bit something else to incentivize that, because both you and I are like, no, not going that far. Forget it. It's too far and it's too hot. We're going right to that's we're going to stick close to the big black.
I think they tried to build it in to some of these modifiers when you're in the siege, right? I seem to remember there was like, if Jackson has been destroyed, you get a +1 or a -1 on this. You get some modifiers somewhere like a garrison demoralization +2 if Jackson is destroyed. I think they've tried to put it in there, but I just think it certainly wasn't enough for me to make the effort to go there. And of course, a lot of that was because by the time I had any chance, because you've done such a good job on the defense, the Army of Relief was there in force. It was like, I would have had to have fought a set piece battle to get there. I wasn't going to do that. But yeah, I think maybe adding some VP to Jackson. Uh, I guess I could go find the playtest results and see if anybody ever did destroy it.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, because it's another reason also for the Army of Maneuver is to try to come out into the field, perhaps threaten Jackson. I think that maybe that's our style of gameplay, or as you did, try to defeat the Army of Relief in detail, which you had a significant impact on. So any and all of those could be factors. I think just reducing it to like, hey, it's a die roll modifier if then, I I don't know.
it,
That was my
it,
only takeaway from that. It was like, it just really does seem like an afterthought outside of the basic scenarios.
And the one thing I would say in this, in terms of the map, is I think between all the basic scenarios, I think we used almost in the advanced game, we used almost the entire map, with the exception. And I was going to send somebody up to Canton, but you blocked it,
Right.
which surprised me. I figured you wouldn't care, but you did care.
Yeah. I think
So
some of the stuff in Copaya County is a little like, it's cavalry stuff maybe, but Crystal Springs,
that's true.
Harpersville.
Yeah, the bottom right corner of the map is not really used. And of course, the one thing I wish they would have put in just to kind of give you just something to like do is maybe make the destruction of Joseph and Jefferson Davis plantations worth a couple points.
Get a one VP for a torch.
March over there, destroy it.
Yeah, anything that's got his name on it, make it go
Yeah,
away. Yeah.
just even if it's send a cab over there
Right.
just to do something. And the other thing, I guess that kind of I would like to see someone try, and I've been looking at it, is how to put together an amphibious force once you've gotten started, because you really that you can then you have to take them off map and then invade the Yazoo, north of Vicksburg in force, and to see if that's possible.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it was never in my plan, and you obviously succeeded because I walked away from some of those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it really wasn't so much that I mean, it was kind of more of along the lines of it's just a shorter way of getting there. It really wasn't an invasion at that point, where it was still in play. Let's say, it's still something that we're as a way to shortcut it. Maybe that's just not. And obviously, Grant didn't even do it. I mean, it was a feint, and that was it. He never
right.
tried again. And one of the things I will just make a quick comment about the overall. I was wondering how they were going to do this because I was thinking, man, this campaign actually starts back in January, and there's all this stuff that happens west of the Mississippi that really ended up doing Sound and Fury with nothing, or was north the Yazoo River stuff. And I think they chose wisely, starting with Bruinsburg and not trying to incorporate Port Hudson and Memphis and
Yeah, I'm really glad that those
Holly Springs.
were not like campaign boxes that you're like, you must
Yeah,
do this. I don't want to deal with that.
off map
Right.
stuff
Yeah.
happening. Instead, it's yeah. I think that was a wise choice. Having played now, well, especially the Chickamauga, Chattanooga, where the off map stuff is there, and it's like it's really that's Chrome on top of Chrome almost, and it's like it's hard to it really doesn't affect what I was interested in. So I'm glad they didn't do it. I was kind of now that I see that they didn't do it, just throwing that out there as a
Same.
comment.
Same. Well, sir, we've hit 90 minutes here of jibber jabber, and this was exactly what I wanted. So I'm gonna say let's wrap it up here. Just a couple of quick announcements. The next thing that Roger and I will be doing is we are in the same time frame here, back onto our chronological cycle. We will be starting probably next week with the first scenario from Stonewall's Last Battle. So all the Chancellorsville campaign. That is very small. That's the one map at Beach release. I always love it because when I hear the story that Ed tells about, like, oh, he went and talked to Joe about it, and Joe's like, why don't you do it? And it's like, okay, and Avalon Hill picked it up. So it was one of the last two releases from Avalon Hill for the Great Campaign series. So it's very small footprint. It's right around Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville, obviously. So we're going to go through that, and I was looking at scenario number one, and I haven't played that one in 15 years. It's literally one of those ones where set piece battle, like 6 pieces, you and I are going to do them back to back in one session without a doubt. And it's weird going from an advanced campaign all the way back to like, well, screw it, there is no tomorrow. Roll the bones, baby, and the attacks will fly. So we're going to do that, and then for the entire series, you have a part in this, and you probably can speak to how far along you are. But the next title is going to be a re-release of Stonewall in the Valley 2, and it's going to combine the original Stonewall in the Valley and the Valley campaign of 1862, along with the Sheridan Valley campaigns of 1864. So, last I heard from Chris, their first half is all finished and play tested and good to go, and now they're working through what should we do for the 1864 stuff. So, can you speak on any of that?
What Mark told me yesterday, and I can't remember where Chris posted something in one of these social media sites, Consum World, Board Game Geek, Facebook, somewhere, that they're hoping that this will be available, that they'll have it ready for go on pre-order this summer, which I think is, wow, that's pretty aggressive. But then, of course, pre-order just means how many people are interested in it, and of course, the continuing the advancement. I think Joe and Chris are playtesting the advanced game. I think they're going to have one advanced scenario for Sheridan in the Valley. I think they do feel like the Stonewall in the Valley is pretty much done. Of course, that was stuff that had been done before.
Sure.
So it's just really just tidying it up, tightening up any loose ends and stuff like that. So
And I got to
that's that.
you and I both participated in the map review on that. So all the new Charlie Kibler maps are fantastic. So that was a year ago that we did those back in January of this year. So yeah, those should be good to go, I would think, from the production standpoint.
I think so too. And the map, the original maps are certainly beautiful to look at, but there's definitely some weirdness there because those were hand drawn, I'm sure, back then. So there were some hex issues and stuff like that, and plus some additional research that I'm sure Joe probably did, maybe Chris also, on clarifying some of the terrain and some of where roads were, bridges were, stuff like that. But it's looking, the Sheridan stuff. Mark and I are doing a scenario now, which we both initially were like, "Oh, this seems kind of weird," but now that we're almost done with it, it's like, "Oh, this is really interesting." It's looking forward to seeing what the campaign looks like and seeing how if they're going to be able to make that balanced, because historically it kind of wasn't.
Yeah, I mean it's 1864. What are you gonna do? Yeah.
I mean, they just the decision was made. We're going to give Sheridan as many men as he wants and go kick his ass, and that's what he did. So that'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah, Stonewall the Battle. I had the book out. I was looking at it last night. Patrick, we spent a year and so many months. This is going to go very quickly.
I know. I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, that is not a detriment against Ed at all. It's just, it's a very, very finite space. And it's like, oh, with a lot of die roll modifiers, and here we go. Bam.
And it was a very short campaign. I mean, so we're talking the first scenario is 1 turn, second scenario is 2 turns, third scenario 2 turns,
Yeah,
fourth scenario
the campaign is
turn.
10 turns, as I
Advanced
recall.
game is 10 turns, yeah. And there's actually 2 versions of it. There's a shorter version and a longer version. And just for people who are wondering, the 70 turns that we just did is by far the longest campaign that Patrick and I have played for online, because we did not do All Green Alike, and we did not do Stonewall Jackson's Way, Second Battle of Manassas, and we did not do On Road to Richmond, the Peninsula Campaign.
I've got worm tongue in my ear all the time saying, you need to go back and do those. I'm like, I know, we will. we are far more experienced now. We are no longer green.
Well, back then we also were kind of gun shy about doing anything that we couldn't get done in one session, so we even skipped some of the longer. I mean, I know we went back finally and did do the Stonewall Jackson's Way one that we skipped, because it was, man, we don't think we want to do this because we were doing them in one long session.
I know the other reason was you and I were doing them on a Friday night, and I had whiskey in me, and you had margaritas at you. So
the one we went till, what was it, 1 o'clock in the morning? People need to go back and watch the last couple hours of that gameplay, because man, I know I was struggling to think of what I was doing. What am I trying to do again?
I don't know, right? Sure, assault, whatever.
Patrick, you've had the last 3 initiatives. What exactly did you do? Oh, I'm in trouble. Anyway, yeah, great. I hope people enjoy this. Been unique. I've enjoyed doing it this session today.
I will second that, and I will put this all into a bubble. We like to encapsulate these things, so Roger, first thanks to you for this wonderful last 15 months, and we continue on the adventure. The journey is with us, so we hope everybody will be joining us on as we go forward. I don't know how long we're going to be doing this, but I'm enjoying every second of it. And again, thank you so much to the good folks at Multiman Publishing for encouraging, and they repost this stuff when I put it on social media, so I hope it's helping them in the big picture. And of course, thank you so much, Joe Balkowski and Chris Withers. You have our enjoyment, and we are getting your support in return. And anytime I need, you and I have a question with Chris, it's always very easy to reach out to get that answered. So we're glad that they are supporting us in all of this. And Alberto, once again, muchas gracias for all of his hard work on these modules, because it's like literally I said, hey, we're about to do Stonewall's Last Battle. He's like, he even updated it like 1 step. He's like, oh, I didn't get the auto turn thing going, so now it's fixed and it's good for you next time. Like, okay, thanks, man. So
great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
We are so indebted to all the folks, and you, gentle viewers. Thank you so much for being with us all these many, many months, and for the constant support and the feedback we get. And definitely today is the one where we want your comments and your feedback here in the comments section. So please do opine. Let us know if we missed anything on this, any other discussion topics. I'll be glad to keep discussing this campaign down here in the discussion below. But feel free to click on any of the channels playlists. Curate these so you can see all the different titles. And we're about halfway through now. We still got a lot to go, plus the new stuff that's coming out. And I'm good for this as long as Roger is. So we will keep doing this as long as you all are enjoying this. And if you want to kick into the channel, there's a little link for you down below. Here are the people that are supporting us with a monetary donation, but do not feel obligated to do that. We certainly appreciate when I see a buck or two showing up in the coffee bin. So thank you again, everybody. Roger, last words for them.
Thanks everybody, and especially as you mentioned, Joe and Chris and Alberto, and I'll also throw in Ed Beach for the fact that he's going to do the next module we're going to do. So thanks everybody, and I guess I'll talk to you next week there, Patrick.
Yes, sir. See you then. Take care, everyone.
Okay. Bye bye.